Dr. Valerie Giangrande, welcome to Coach's Corner. Coach, for those of you that don't know, is an acronym that stands for Conduit of Optimism, Altruism, Consciousness, and Health. And Dr. Valerie, I've been following for a while now on Instagram as the Quantum Eye Doc, and she is going to provide us with plenty of information that falls under each of those categories. And I'm just a conduit, so I'm just here to ask some questions and kind of facilitate this. I am not the expert, so Dr. Valerie, welcome. And I'll give you a couple of minutes to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. I really appreciate you asking me to come on here.
Sure.
So I am an optometrist. I'm a practicing optometrist in private practice for over 20 years. Pretty conventional to start. 20 years ago, I was all about covering up from the sun, and I didn't know better. I was very fearful of the sun, and I developed some health issues because of it. Looking back, that's exactly what happened. So when I was in optometry school, I was diagnosed with a hypothyroid, condition, and I was put on medication, and I thought I felt better, and I just kind of went with that. And when I did start having my own kids, my son started to develop some health issues years ago. He's 16 now. This is when he was about 4. And those health issues weren't typical. They were just really uncomfortable for us. So we could not find any help from our pediatricians who wanted just to medicate him. So to make a long story short, we started going into functional medicine, very holistic over time. We changed our diet. We changed so many things, and we saw so many improvements. So we were on board to be completely holistic in this sense. But then I still had my own conditions happening. So I went to my own doctor, and thank goodness, he just said to me, "How much sun do you get?" And when he said that, that was just something that surprised me, threw my world into, this complete confusion, because I didn't understand what he was saying until he pointed me in the direction of Dr. Jack Cruz, which I feel like a lot of us have found that information completely changed everything I thought I knew. And when you realize that light is controlling every aspect of the body, it really does change everything. So I made changes, my kids made, I made changes for the family, and I started to tell patients, I always try to take a more holistic view with patients and know that the eyes are connected to the entire body. But once we added that light piece, not everybody wants to hear it, but I think when we explain it in such a way that it just makes sense, it makes a huge difference. And I just want to get that information out there. So since then, I'm an applied quantum biology practitioner at this point. I'm certified through that institute, which I thought was fantastic. And I just want to put that information out there as much as possible.
That's brilliant. I love everything about that. It's, I guess, outside of the fact that you and your kids had some health conditions, but that is kind of the common practice now. And as we know, the more we dig into light, and we'll certainly get really far into that today, I hope, but we're indoors so often, where, as I tell my clients all the time, we're chronically seeking this comfort zone of about 68 to 72 degrees. And, if it's too hot out, we're running into the AC. If it's too cold out, we're running into the heat. And every time we do that, we're getting away from nature, getting away from the sun and the natural light that really gives us life, Yeah. So certainly you'll be able to tap into this far better than I, but knowing what artificial light does to us between the fluorescence, the LEDs, the blue light spectrum that is on every screen we have, it's really wreaking havoc in ways that most people don't know. So, you mentioned that people don't want to hear about the sun, and ultimately that's just because they've been programmed to fear it, which that's my message right now, my goal. In fact, I've been saying this to a lot of people, so I kind of feel like a broken record, but you haven't heard it yet, and many of my listeners haven't either. But I sense that we are witnessing the end of what I'm calling the disempowerment paradigm. And you and I, and a massive group of people, ultimately, as you alluded to already, Dr. Jack Cruz, many of us that have followed his information for a while now, we are ushering in this empowerment paradigm. And we just need to convey the information and really, in the most positive sense of the word, indoctrinate people to understand the information that they haven't had access to. So
I love that. That's beautiful. You gave me chills. I absolutely love that. That was fantastic.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Well, I'm still such a student to this information. I am not by any stretch an expert, but I do like to convey what I learned from your posts on Instagram, from Dr. Cruz, from Dr. Alexis Cowan, and so on. There's so many people out there that are, the experts in the field. So I guess ultimately, I'll ask from your perspective. You're a quantum coach. I read on your page.
Yes.
Let's dig down the path a little bit. I will have you touch upon some of the optometry type of work as well. But as my background, I'm a massage therapist. I'm also a personal trainer. I have a certification in functional nutrition coaching. So it's all under that same umbrella of overall health and wellness,
Mhm.
and again, empowering people to take care of their own health. So I guess the quantum coach side, let's dig into that a little bit more. What does that entail, and what do you do with your average client with the quantum coaching?
So the light piece has to be foundational first and foremost before we delve into anything else. So I really like to incorporate how we get safe sun exposure through our eyes, through our skin, and then how we block that artificial signal of light, because light is such a powerful mover of everything in our body that needs to be foundational. So I'm starting with, again, just that sunrise light through our naked eyes. We need that blue signal from the morning sun. We need red and infrared to balance us out. That blue signal is literally powering up our eyes to tell our brain that it's morning, signaling the start of cortisol and the sex hormones that we have, and the start of the day and our energy and our digestion. And we cannot do that when we get the wrong signals. So I'll go into the artificial signals in a moment, but we require natural sunlight through our eyes to it's the connection that we have from the earth, from the sun to the brain. So we definitely need that through our eyes. When we're always afraid of the sun and wearing sunglasses, we're just not getting those signals. The brain has no idea what time it is. So everything is on a timer based on sunshine. The beautiful thing about the sunshine is that it is always changing. It's very always full spectrum and giving us the balance that we need. And the next part of the after sunrise is getting that UVA rise. And this is where people get really their mind gets blown a little bit, because ultraviolet light, we're very conditioned to be so afraid of, especially with the eyes. And even my colleagues have a hard time hearing this, but we have ultraviolet A receptors in our cornea, right on the front surface, and in our eyes. We have amino acids that are waiting for those signals of ultraviolet light to literally start this cascade of making neurotransmitters, hormones, setting our sleep patterns, our metabolism. Everything gets started through the eyes. So there's no reason why we would have those UVA receptors if we didn't need it. So about an hour after sunrise, we need to be outside. Just be outside. We don't have to stare at the sun, but we need those signals to start the production of serotonin, and which turns into melatonin. We make dopamine, we make melanin. We're making all these beautiful things. We're stimulating our thyroid hormone and noradrenaline and our metabolism, and how we absorb sugar and leptin and insulin, and all of those things happen only when we get those signals. So people have to be outside for sunrise, UVA rise. If we're wearing glasses, we want to take them off. If we're wearing sunglasses, we need to take them off. Contacts are an issue as well. We need to take them off. And then we want to establish kind of a way to build up that sun exposure for people who are very sun sensitive. We want to build up slowly in the morning with more of that sunrise. The red and infrared is very healing. So by building up slowly in the morning and adding on the stronger layers of UV, we can typically handle that a little bit better. Depending on where we live, depending on our skin tone, there's UVB available as the sun gets stronger, and people know that that's how we make our vitamin D. But in addition to making vitamin D, again, the benefits of getting that sun exposure on our skin and through our eyes when we have the same signal is just, there's nothing that can, we can't get that from a supplement. We need that from the sun. It's just so incredible. So again, those are times where we have to really coach people to be safe and do it slowly, and just know that as far as eyes and sun, just being outside and even being in the shade is helpful. Wear a hat, do something, just get out there and start getting those signals. And then ultimately we do want our skin exposed with our eyes at the same time. We want to get outside throughout the day, get those hits of sun. If we are in an office, perhaps opening a window, because closed windows do not let this full spectrum of sun through. So we want to either open a window. I'm sitting next to an open window right now. You may hear cars going by, or lawnmowers. Or just get outside, go out for cigarette breaks, go out for sun breaks, get as much of that exposure as we can. You don't have to, I'm not telling anybody to stare at the sun. There are times, of course, where we need to be careful, but for the most part, we're not getting those signals. And ultraviolet light is such a beautiful signal that does so many things in our body. Our body literally makes ultraviolet light. That's how important it is that every cell is releasing ultraviolet light. Those are our signaling signals. And the infrared that's always there is always going to give us that beautiful balance, and red light. Blue light as well. So sunset is the other time where we can be outside, and then we always want to block that artificial signal at night. So the problem with our world, and this is probably one of the most important things I tell people, is that anytime we're exposed to any signal of light that's not sunshine, And that's fluorescence, that's LEDs, that's even a TV. People don't realize, oh, they're like, I'm not on my phone, but the TV is the same thing, just an overhead light is a single spectrum of blue light that doesn't exist in nature. And it is that same color temperature of the sun at about 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So that in the morning, if we wake up, we're turning on our lights, our brain thinks it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And what is that? That actually makes our body act like it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So just by routing that signal in the morning, you basically disrupt the entire day because you're not making the signals that will require melatonin to be made so that we could sleep later in the day. So when we're sitting inside all day on screens, we need to find ways to block the artificial blue light because blue light not only messes with we need blue light to set our circadian rhythm properly, but when we are exposed to just that single spectrum of blue, it's actually creating damage to our body and to our eyes. It's harmful to the photoreceptors because it actually damages them by releasing vitamin A, and the vitamin A that gets released in some of these in all of the photoreceptors is actually very damaging. So we see a lot of eye conditions happening, but because the eyes are the window to the rest of the body, health starts in the eyes. And when things go wrong in the eyes, you can actually have these downstream effects in the entire body. So we need to keep our eyes and our body healthy with those natural signals. And at night, more importantly, there's no blue that exists. It's dark outside. Our brain needs darkness. So at night, when those lights are on, our brain just gets that 12 o'clock timestamp and everything goes wrong because cortisol is released all over again. And there's nothing stopping it. There's nothing balancing it. And that's where all of these health issues can occur just by having the wrong signals. And melatonin doesn't get released. Melatonin is what heals us while we're sleeping. So it's so important to get those light signals because every process in the body is controlled by light. So that's the first and foremost thing that we need to do with all clients. And then we work on hydration and all of the other things that are important as well. But I feel like light is the piece that needs to be working before we can add in anything else.
For sure. That's brilliant. There's so much information to unpack there. I think about it in terms, generally speaking, people that are starting to get into their health, their wellness and fitness, they think diet and exercise. And not to minimize those, not to say they're not important, they're vitally important. But if we're not prioritizing the light, and as Dr. Cruz says, light, water, and magnetism, right? It's light is so vital, and we are around it so frequently, but we're around this artificial light thanks to the light bulb and Edison and electricity, right? That it gives us this opportunity to expand our day. And from a business perspective, many people love it because they're producing more, they're making more money, and they won't change that, but they don't recognize I often push back on the saying, ignorance is bliss. In many cases, ignorance is the root cause of every problem we have. If you're not aware of the information that's harming you, there's nothing you can do to change it. So everything you just conveyed is wonderful. I'm admittedly slightly overwhelmed and not sure which direction to go in, but I think the first thing that popped into my mind with the light is something I believe I heard you say, how the light is actually going to help to trigger certain things in the body to respond. So the tryptophan that we get in food, as important as that is, to then become serotonin, that process doesn't happen without the proper light spectrum, right? And then that serotonin being converted to the melatonin, and people are supplementing with melatonin instead of maximizing the body's natural production. So maybe just kind of throwing that concept out there, we can dig a little bit deeper into that and unpack that a little bit.
That would be great. So our eyes, the retinal cells are actually full of amino acids, as you mentioned. We have tyrosine and tryptophan as an example, and those two are triggered or are actually ultraviolet A light traps. So they're waiting for that ultraviolet exposure. And when we are exposed to UVA through our eyes, those cascades will actually change tryptophan, like you said, to serotonin starting in the eye, and that will ultimately become melatonin. We have dopamine that gets made from tyrosine. Dopamine is really important, and melanin. Melanin is perhaps I would say one of the most important things we can do for so many reasons. We all know that melanin is what helps us tan, or it protects us from the sunlight. But in addition to that, melanin provides energy for our bodies. Melanin is such an amazing such an amazing thing that we have in the body, such an amazing molecule, because it has to do with, again, how we have energy in the body, has to do with our metabolism. There's all these different pathways that melanin is really a part of. The other thing that happens is that the ultraviolet A combined with the infrared light that we get from the sun is how we make water, or we hydrate our cells. And that's a whole other layer of sunshine and how we work as far as having a battery. So our bodies are electrical, and we need a very high voltage to work. And that comes from our mitochondrial cells, our energy cells. And our mitochondrial cells, in addition to our circadian rhythm, they're controlled by our mitochondria. So our mitochondria is we know it as our powerhouse or our energy cells, but it's also what's controlling the entire body. It's our antenna. And
Mhm.
it's powered, the different proteins in the mitochondria are powered by light. So we require ultraviolet light. We require the red and the infrared. And mitochondria not only make our ATP, but it's making water for the body. And the water that it's making is actually this gel water that acts like a battery around all of our cells. And our eyes, our body doesn't work unless we have hydration, because that's the
Mhm.
electrical, that's what's holding on to electrons, and that's what's holding on to protons and giving our body the literal voltage that we need. In the eyes, we require infrared and ultraviolet light to process light. That's how light's generated. That's how the electrical signal is getting from the sun through our eyes to the brain to the rest of the body. Our photoreceptors aren't working unless we have that water. So we need the light signals, that ultraviolet light and the infrared, to make all those cascades of our hormones, our neurotransmitters, and all the other things that we mentioned. Did that answer your question? I feel like I went off on a tangent there.
That's right. It was beautiful because I love how you brought up that form of water, the easy water. For those that don't know, the exclusion zone water. That's another of these many things that I've been digging into and really excited to find out about. I think we all know intuitively that we don't have H2O flowing through our body, or else as we got cut, we would see water flow out. But I don't think many people understand exactly how it gets converted in that whole process. And the fact that easy water is really that's one of the many roots of our health and well-being. I don't know this part. Maybe you know, and you can kind of add some extra information with this. But as a massage therapist, I often talk with my clients as I'm working on them, and you feel these areas of tension. The shoulders are up around their ears, and they're just so guarded, is the term that I use, that they're in this chronic sympathetic state. That nervous system of survival mode and just fired up. And my goal is to try to get them to learn how to shut off the sympathetic and turn on the parasympathetic. And I can feel as that tissue starts to hydrate and relax and melt away. And I was actually just speaking with one of my clients the other day about this. I said, admittedly, I don't know, but I wonder if as we're feeling that tension start to dissipate and melt away, is there a degree to which the easy water plays a role? And is that what we're manipulating?
Absolutely. So the fascial system in the body is full of collagen, hyaluronic acid, and it has it's exclusion zone water, but it's in an even better um, state. It's in these microtubules, or these nanotubules, where the water with the collagen acts like this highway, this conductive highway that actually it becomes our communication. It connects every part of our body, and it needs to be hydrated in order to send information throughout the entire body. So it's faster than our neurons. It's faster than the receptor and a hormone. It's that we think about when we think about biology. We think about this receptor gets hormone gets released, and then the receptor connects to it, and that's how we work. But really, it's our fascial system it's a communication highway. It's electrons. It's holding light energy. It's holding frequencies. It's holding sound, and it's just transmitting energy, frequency, sound, voltage throughout the entire body. So that fascial system, when we get stressed, because of the way the water is situated, it's like a liquid crystal, and crystals can hold on to energy based on their structure, because it's such a beautiful structure and it works so it's like a superconductor. And because of that, it's holding on to energy and frequency and information. So if we have stress, that stress gets held onto, our fascia can hold on to that stress and tighten up the collagen and actually dehydrate. And what happens, when you can use massage to actually open up that fascia, the hyaluronic acid is being released, water is being generated, and we can relax. And some people feel a release of emotions and stress because it's all held in that fascia. So it's just an amazing system. And we need to be hydrated from sunlight. That's one of the main things. That's part of how we are hydrated with our fascial system. But even with movement and all the other things that you're doing, all of that is helpful for the fascia as well. But it's so important. That hydration piece is really important for so many reasons.
That's brilliant. I love it. We're connecting so many dots here, and I really appreciate it. I recall back to childhood and just knowing. I intellectually I didn't understand why, but I just knew stepping outside and going into the sun to play, I felt better. And I still feel that inner child in me today, that if I come out of the office after being in there for a long day, that sun's out there, I'm just smiling. I just
Yeah.
feel better. And now I have that level that my inner geek comes out and says, I know I'm fueling the mitochondria and they're giving me my energy, and that we are literally healing in that process.
Mm-hmm.
It gets really exciting for me. And tapping into that inner child in me. You mentioned the dopamine earlier before, and just thinking about the dynamic of all this artificial light and the blue lights from the screens. Over the past couple of years, I've lost both of my parents.
Sorry.
Thank you. It's one of those things. My spiritual relationship at this point is such. I've done a lot of meditation, a lot of self-healing journey, and even before they both passed, I really felt connected to their spirit, and that our relationship was really strong. And now that they've passed, the more I reflect, I think back. Dad, especially, he worked for primarily digital, but a couple of different companies, and he worked on semiconductors. And
Oh.
he was staring at screens all day long. He was one of the hardest workers I've ever known. And to just be sitting in front of the screen indoors under that artificial light, he wound up suffering from Parkinson's. And we hear about the dopamine. We hear about more and more now this understanding of the role light plays, and the role, if I just knew then, get his butt
Mm-hmm.
outdoors more, and get,
Yeah.
if blue light blocking glasses, we'll tap into that in a moment too. I've got a couple here with me that we'll discuss with people. But I guess it's kind of thinking out loud, sharing that, but also for other people who might be in the boat that he was in. What can we do? Can we just encourage them, get some breaks? They've obviously got to get their job done. They're going to be indoors. They're not going to make a
Right.
dramatic change and just leave their job. But what kind of timeline of X amount of time on the screen working underneath those lights, preferably wearing the blue light blocking glasses while they're in there, and then some outdoor breaks and so on? What do we think we can do to help them out?
So, if someone is already having symptoms of Parkinson's, I think there has to be a lot more light involved. I think maybe getting a few breaks throughout the day may not be enough.
Mm-hmm.
But blue light destroys our dopamine. Absolutely. So, we definitely want to block the artificial signals of light, try to get some lights that are healthier inside, and get outside as much as possible. But we need ultraviolet light specifically to make that dopamine. So that's as much as we can, even on our skin as well. So I would say someone who has the potential, those symptoms, needs to probably go on a vacation and get some really, heavy doses of that safely. As long as
Mm-hmm.
we do it safely, it's okay, but we need as much as possible. I don't know, to reverse something like that, the more sun, the better. But at night, zero blue light. I mean, those orange glasses, red glasses, that's going to be really important. Turning off overhead lights so that there's no signals coming in from above, because that's going to simulate sunlight. That has to be crucial. Morning sunshine, UVA rise, and then trying to get outside as much as possible throughout the day. And that's so hard. I mean, I try my best when I'm working, when I'm in the office a few days a week. There are times I really cannot get outside until lunch, and it kills me. And I'm just sitting there thinking, oh gosh, I'm in this dark room and the lights are on and off. And, it's a hard thing. And there are days I don't feel as well. And I know that I don't feel as well. And I have all these special lights and I try the best I can. But, the days when we're outside are going to be best. So yes,
Yeah.
dopamine is really wonderful. It's such a nice thing that we can do with the sunlight, but we want to get as much as possible if we already have symptoms.
Okay. No, that's great. I actually do know a couple of clients that their loved ones have recently been diagnosed or have had that diagnosis for years now. And it's hard, when somebody is already going through it and they're under a treatment of, some sort of standard of care treatment.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough to override that. But I think conversations like this, to just get that information out and then let people do with it as they see fit, whatever
Mm-hmm.
degree we can help with. And, just having been impacted by it personally, of course, now the rest of my loved ones that are around, I'm doing everything I can. And in my house, I've been ordering more of the amber light bulbs and trying to get away from the recessed lights, the LED lights, that overhead type of
Mm-hmm.
stuff, more lamps down lower. And I actually just ordered blue light blocking glasses for the whole family. I've been wearing them for a while,
Good.
and they look at them a little funny and kind of chuckle. But my 12-year-old likes to play his video games now, or he's
Mm-hmm.
all of them at some time or another, of course, are on their devices and looking at the screens. So I just said, guys, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you can't do that.
Right.
But when you do it, especially in the evening, you got to wear the glasses. So
Yeah.
I guess that's a good transition into, for people that are maybe not aware yet, I have two different pairs here. We can kind of discuss the
Yep.
benefits of each, and maybe even discuss the lack of benefit of the third alternative. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, but we've got our yellow ones here, which I know are more for daytime,
Hmm.
and then the more orange or amber ones more for the evening. So if we can dig in, and then, the ones that we see for sale that are just the clear lenses that don't do
Yeah.
a whole heck of a lot, I'll let you dig in as the
Right,
expert
right.
to explain.
Yeah, absolutely. So the blue light glasses is a big topic because a lot of people will say, "Oh, I heard it's, I actually just posted about this the other day that, I heard it's a scam and this is just a moneymaker for eye doctors who want to sell blue light glasses." And I think a lot of the research is really done on those clear glasses that really block nothing, maybe 10%, maybe 15% of perhaps not even the correct signaling.
Mm-hmm.
So that's nonsense. I mean, obviously there's a big difference between how much blue light we need during the day and what we need at night. We need zero blue light at night. So at night to start, those orange glasses are going to be the most important that we can do because we need to block 100% of light so that our brain does not think it's daytime and that we're protecting from the damage of the blue light.
Mm-hmm.
During the day, the yellow ones are appropriate. They're usually about a 50% blockage of harmful blue light. So there's a little bit of two different types of kind of blue light hazard that we talk about. So having blue light at night is going to disrupt our circadian rhythm because it's going to trigger our melanopsin cells to tell us that it's daytime, which will disrupt our rhythm. But there are also other wavelengths of blue that are damaging. So the damage that I was talking about as far as damaging our photoreceptors by releasing that vitamin A, and damaging our DHA, which is that healthy fat that acts like an electrical signal as well, is done by blue light in the spectrum. In artificial lights, there's a really high peak of 455 nanometers, and that's pretty damaging. So during the day, we want to make sure we're blocking that signal, and usually the yellow glasses are blocking those damaging signals without necessarily blocking the signals that will keep us awake. Because if we
Mm-hmm.
wear orange glasses during the day, then we're tired, we fall asleep. We don't want to block all of that blue light. We do need blue light to keep us awake. Obviously, we would love sunshine because it's always balanced. So we want to do the different things. So yellow during the day, orange at night. Clear to me is nonsense. And I will say, in my business, in my world, there are some clear glasses. The technology has gotten a little bit better. Something called Blue Guard is about 40% blockage, 50% blockage, and it is on the clearer side. So I'm okay with that for people during the day. There's also perhaps Blue Check may also be not terrible, and it's not that yellow the way they do the technology. But other than that, most of the clear glasses are just nonsense, truly
Okay.
nonsense. The other thing that those glasses don't protect us from is the flicker. The flicker that happens. Unfortunately, artificial lights always have this flicker. So if we were to videotape an artificial light or an LED on slow motion, we would see that light goes on and off and on and off. And that's not normal. Sunlight doesn't flicker. Sunlight is just this beautiful full spectrum of sun. The flickering is very disruptive for the body, and some people are sensitive. We can't see it, but some people are sensitive to that. You get people who are just inside all day on screens and they get headaches and they get migraines, and they don't realize that it could be from that flicker, which is just a stressful signal for the body to keep having this strobe effect. So that's something that those glasses really don't help. There are some, I believe, Iris technology that you can download does get rid of the flicker as well. So Iris technology is a beautiful program to change the monitor settings on the screen to mimic sunshine throughout the day. That's a good one. I do think that it does take care of the flicker. And F Lux is another program that's also very good. So that combination of putting something like that on a screen, although again, it doesn't get rid of the flicker above us. So that's another issue, but try to do everything we can to minimize as much as possible. In addition to getting outside would be the most helpful thing.
Brilliant. That's great. Yeah, I came up with, I'm sure it's not original, but just the way I put it together, there's just this simple equation that health, H equals N plus T, I call it. So health equals nutrients plus toxins. So, and I think about it in terms of nutrition predominantly, but if we use that with light, I think we can do the same thing. If we look at the light spectrum from the sun as being nutritious in a sense,
Yeah.
we're getting nutrients from the sun. And if we're getting more of the artificial stuff, that's where more of the toxins are coming from. So I don't think it's feasible in our society today to expect it to be a zero toxins
Right.
and just nutrients. We're not going to just be outdoors all day.
Right.
But I think you've already kind of touched upon a lot of that. But with that equation kind of in top of your mind now, is there some advice we can give to somebody specifically that we know? There's so many people we know that are stuck in offices all day. Again, you've kind of already touched upon this, but maybe with that equation, how we can make sense of how to maximize it.
So you're saying someone who really just can't get outside, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. I mean, maybe breaks and stuff, as you alluded to.
right.
As you said,
Breaks.
people have made it a point over the years to get outside for smoking breaks, as you said. So if you
Right,
can do it for something like that, let's do it for something that's actually going to give you some health benefits and
right.
make some breaks for that.
Yeah, I mean, if we really truly cannot get outside as much as we need to, or we're not by a window, my office has no windows,
Hmm.
then you can start. You can supplement with lights. Like I have a box that I call it. It's a full spectrum light. It has infrared,
Hmm.
red, and the full spectrum of light. So I do have that next to me during the day, and I'll put it on in between patients to get that infrared because we are starving for infrared. If there's a way we can kind of supplement infrared light into our day, I think that's really helpful because infrared light and red light, that's the antidote to blue light damage. So in the sun or outside when we are exposed to blue light, red light's always going to counteract the inflammation that happens. Infrared light will also counteract that. So because our lights have become energy efficient and they took out the infrared, we're starving for that. So I think there might be some um, that's what I do. I mean, I bring it with me every day. So there's boxes you can get to try to supplement some of that. There's red light therapy some people can do. I don't know that you would do that in the middle of the day, but a box that has some infrared light is really important. And again, I also have a full spectrum lamp that I bring. Trying to think what else I do. I have a monitor screen, there's things like that. But other than basically just trying to supplement light and wearing the glasses, I don't know what else I would recommend. Wi-Fi is another issue,
Hmm.
with being in a workspace that we didn't touch upon, but Wi-Fi is very dehydrating to the body. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a different frequency that we do absorb, and it does play a role in dehydrating the body and making us stressed and damaging our mitochondria. So even Wi-Fi can be a problem. So if there's any way people can hardwire their mouse, their keyboard, their systems and try to reduce some of the exposure, Wi-Fi we're not getting away from, but there has to be ways to try to mitigate some of that as well. I think that's also very helpful. We want to make sure we stay hydrated with clean water throughout the day. By drinking water, we're not making that exclusion zone water necessarily, but we are able to hydrate us in a way that can help. So we want to stay hydrated. Spring water is amazing. Water with minerals, structured water, clean water. We have to avoid tap water that has tap water that's not filtered. Fluoride's really bad for us. So just by getting that clean source of water, hopefully it's structured and has minerals, and doing those other things can help mitigate some of those effects if we can't get outside as much as possible. And then again, when we can, just to get out there, especially in the morning. I mean, I'm assuming we always have that morning piece. People driving to work can crack open a window in their car. A
Yeah.
closed window is going to block it. I drive to work with my windows open just to get
Yeah.
some of those signals because depending on time of year, I have to get to work and the UVA is just coming up. So that's a little bit of a problem. So again, cracking a window open, opening the sunroof. You don't have to do much. We don't need much, but we need some.
Yeah.
So even just opening the window a little bit will get those signals in.
Brilliant. Yeah, I drive my daughter to school every day. She's got so many different bags. She's a sophomore in high school, and I do that exact thing. And even if it's colder, I said, okay, we'll turn the heat on if you need to, but the windows are going to be open because I need
Right.
that light coming in. So I'm,
Mm-hmm.
you know, drilling that in that way just by leading by example and living it.
Mm-hmm.
I love that recommendation of the light box that has the full spectrum. Is there a place that we can recommend people go to find something like that?
So I bought it from, I want to say from blockbluelight.com or from soulshine.com. Those two companies I like. Blockbluelight.com, I think that's where I have a lot of my bulbs that are circadian friendly. So it'll be full spectrum light during the day, and then you can change it to a sunset setting, and then uh, no blue. So those are the lights I kind of changed in the house. They have a light box, but I believe that I ordered. Yes, I think I got that one from blockbluelight.com, and I also have another light that I have from soulshine.com. It's someone who actually worked. Ken Cedar worked with John Ott. I don't know if you know who John Ott is, but he wrote a book years ago. He was a photographer that took time-lapse photography of flowers for Disney, but he discovered so many things about light and its effects on health and all of these amazing things. So they created a light that's also full spectrum, and it has a little bit of UVA in it as well. And that's a light that I kind of put on. It's in my kitchen, and sometimes in the winter, I'll put that on just as an ambient light. And again, I hesitate to tell people to use lights that have UV.
Mhm.
Usually that's not great advice, but this light, I trust. It's not something, it could just be on in the background. It has full spectrum light, a tiny bit of UVA, and it's just something that can be on in the background. So that one I like. Yeah, those are the two companies. There's plenty of companies that have lights like that, but those are the two that I had ordered from.
That's great. I love it. Yeah, just more and more advice for people. I mean, again, understanding full well that getting outside is the priority.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I probably should have said this at the beginning, but just as a disclaimer, this is no treatment
Yes.
for anybody. This is just educational information, right? We're not here as you being their doctor per se, but just the more information we can convey and empower people to make better choices for themselves. That's
Mm-hmm.
really helpful. So I think we've done a great job explaining the light aspect of it, and I'm sure we'll tap into a little bit more, but as well as the water for that matter. Drinking cleaner water is a great way to put those sources in the body for the mitochondria to be able to help make that exclusion zone water. But mitochondria actually, my understanding, we'll dig into this with you as the expert again, but when we get cold, the mitochondria are able to release this infrared light for us as
Yes.
well, right? That's how they're generating the heat. So
Yes.
tapping into some degree of some cold thermogenesis and not being afraid of the cold in the winter months can actually really benefit us, right?
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. Yes. So right. So we just need to be in sync with nature, our body. The cold therapy is fantastic. Like you said, we're not used to getting cold. What we are designed to be cold so that our mitochondria, the brown adipose tissue in our mitochondria, especially up here, will actually release heat, and it burns fat, and it creates infrared and infrared heat. Infrared is actually what expands that voltage, that exclusion zone water. It also helps us hold on to melanin. The reason why I brought up water earlier is because melanin with water together is how is actually generates electrons and energy. It actually splits water, and it helps us create more energy from those two things. So we need melanin in many parts of the body, and just doing cold therapy and even starting slowly and building up. We don't need, even if we can't do too much of it, is a very, just an amazing way to generate energy from our mitochondria, generate that infrared, give us voltage, keep us energetic, and just keep us in sync with nature. So in the winter, yes, we do want to try to be cold. We don't always want to be so 72 degrees all year round. It just doesn't make sense. Just like it doesn't make sense to eat food that doesn't grow in our environment in the winter. We need to be in sync, because food is also a cue for the mitochondria. When we're eating food, that's telling our body what season it is. So if it's winter, we want to act like it's winter. We want to, be in the dark more. We want to be cold more. We want to make sure we're not eating tropical fruits if we're living in a seasonal environment where it's winter, because it just doesn't make sense. So
Yeah.
we want to make sure, just from a logical standpoint, that things make sense, that if it's winter, we can be cold. If it's summer, yeah, we can eat more of the foods that grow, because more things grow when the UV is higher. And there are different things we can do in the summer as well. But seasonal cues are also extremely important, especially adding that cold therapy is fantastic. Infrared therapy, like sauna, is also another way. Some
Yeah.
saunas also have red light infrared. And that's another way to also expand that infrared and the energy that we need. Infrared is so healing. And again, we are starving. Infrared expands our exclusion zone water, gives our mitochondria energy to make melatonin all day long. When we make that melatonin, it's not the same melatonin that helps us sleep. It's melatonin that gets made in a subcellular level in the mitochondria that's actually acting like an antioxidant all day long. So again, we need infrared and we need that. So cold therapy is a great way to do that, as well as is infrared sauna. That's another thing we can do to supplement.
Brilliant. Yeah, and it's funny you bring up sauna. That's a great segue as well with the whole concept of the cold therapy, cold thermogenesis. Doing the contrast is a great technique as well. So hitting that sauna first, getting yourself really warm, and then hitting that cold plunge or cold shower, however people choose to do it. That contrast has proven to be really powerful for me. I'll spend about 20 minutes or so in the sauna. It averages about 180, and
Wow,
then we
that's
sweat
great.
quite a bit in there, and then I try to average about a 5 to 10 minute cold shower right after it. And, schedule will dictate what I have
Mm-hmm.
time for and such. And, just depending on the day, how I'm feeling, sometimes it's a little longer in the sauna, sometimes it's a little less, but, just listen to my body so I don't force it. But yeah, that's,
Right.
that's a great way as well with that sauna. Um, there's a couple of different things I have in mind I want to make sure we get over. But the first one, I'll kind of go back a little bit. My own personal schedule, and I think this will benefit a lot of people just based on the number of conversations I have of getting to bed earlier, getting up earlier, maximizing things like the darkness, the melatonin, things that'll, we hear this uptick in different cancers And I learned recently that the more time we have in the dark, the more time we're sleeping, and we really have that melatonin production, it's actually tumor suppressing to be able to have that good quality sleep. So I've really maximized my schedule with that. And I guess the question I have with that, and you can certainly elaborate on that aspect as well, but I get up really early. I'm up on average around 4:30. And what I've realized, my schedule was consistently to get down in my basement, do my cardio first thing, and just get my body moving. I'd listen to some podcasts, but with the whole light concept and knowing that I want to get the sunshine in my eyes first thing, if I am up early, I'm putting the blue light blocking glasses
Yep.
on first thing, but it feels so weird to me to put them on first thing. So I'm trying to shift my sleep schedule just a little bit so I can get up a little bit later and then really get the sun as quick as I can in my eyes. I guess that's more a statement than anything, but with that information, is there
Yeah.
any advice you could throw at me and
No.
encourage me to go in a certain direction?
You're doing everything correct. I mean, that's exactly what I'd recommend. You have to just put those on until the sun comes up. That's what I do too. And especially in the winter, the sun comes up so late where we are, and it's hard. It's hard to walk around the house with orange glasses and get things done. I have to get the kids out. I mean, the kids are older, but I still have to get them out of the house, and it's tough. It really is. And I can't sleep in. So we have to wear those orange glasses to start and try not to put on the lights too much. And exercising is really tough in the morning before sunlight because it's disrupting our cortisol release, which is something that people really get upset when they hear, because that's what their schedule allows them to do, is exercise before breakfast, exercise before work. And unfortunately, that's tough. That's tough to do, especially if it is in an environment that's blue lit. Sometimes I wonder if it's okay to exercise with the orange glasses on, although I think the exercise itself might be stimulating a little cortisol that may be perhaps a little dysregulating, but I would imagine exercising is better than not exercising. So again, that's where I question that as well. I'm not exactly sure. I guess it depends on the person, but definitely trying to having sunlight be the first light that you see would be the most important thing. And you're already doing that, so that sounds fantastic.
All right, great. Yeah, it's been strange, because it took me years. I was not always a morning person. So when I tell people how early I'm up, they think I'm crazy. And there's a former version of me that completely agrees. I would have been up much later and sleep in much later if I could, but it just makes so much sense for me
Are you
now.
waking up naturally at 4:30?
Yes. Yeah, I don't use an alarm or anything.
Okay. So
Yeah,
that's how your body's okay. But you're
that's
getting to bed early. You probably already had enough. You had your full night of sleep. So that's how you're waking up. Okay.
Yep. And I pull in from a little bit of Matthew Walker's work. He's a sleep expert. And I often talk about him that, he says a full sleep cycle is on average 90 minutes and that we should have between 4 and 6 sleep cycles. So somewhere between 6, 7.5, or 9 hours is a good full night's sleep.
Okay.
And with that in mind, I know if you wake up in the middle of a sleep cycle, that's when we're really groggy and we don't feel quite right. So I took that and adapted my schedule quite a bit so that if I did need an alarm to get up as I did in the past, it would try to be within a window of time that would ensure I had the full sleep cycle. So then just that adaptation process has really worked for me. And if I roll over in the morning, I don't have a clock in my room,
Right.
but I'll tap my phone if I need to. I keep it on airplane mode,
Right.
but
Good.
I'll tap that to see it. As I roll over, I kind of just go through a mental checklist. Do I feel rested and could I get up if it's time to get up? And if I do, and I tap that phone and I see that it's anything after 4, I generally get up. And
That's fine.
if not, and I have another full 90 minutes, then I'll get another sleep cycle in. But I know my schedule is a little unique, so not everybody can do it that way. But it was worth me doing, and it's served me quite well.
Oh, that sounds great. Sounds like it's working beautifully.
Yeah, it's been good.
Good.
And a big part of what did that for me is just being able to get to a point that I don't watch TV in the evening. I've really cut down on the things that I knew were going to negatively impact my melatonin. And that actually, I want to use that as a segue for something else that came across one of your posts that was talking about the impact of, let me see, I had it written down so I didn't forget, the artificial blue light impacting our blood sugar as well. So it's this dynamic of, we know the melatonin as well, but this artificial blue light, to a degree of toxicity like we're seeing, is not only negatively impacting the sleep because it's telling us late in the day that it's still noon and we don't sleep well, but it's directly impacting our blood sugar and causing all sorts of ailments.
Oh,
So
God.
I'll let you dig into
Yeah,
that one.
absolutely. So, I mean, that blue light is triggering a release of cortisol because the body thinks it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And a cortisol release at the wrong time is going to automatically elevate our blood sugar. It's going to make
Mm.
us hungry the wrong time. It's going to mess with our insulin and our leptin. Our leptin, those signals are all solar, they're powered by light. We need to have the correct timing. So, cortisol will automatically raise blood sugar. So, people who are diabetic, who are trying to eat low carb, but have lights on, their blood sugar is still going to be high. It's such a huge, huge risk factor for diabetes, metabolic disease, all the diseases that we're exposed to, because that cortisol is also going to mess with our other sex hormones. It's going to mess with estrogen. So there's estrogen related cancers that can be contributing to that. But yes, the cortisol increase with blood sugar is huge. What's nice about cortisol release in the morning is that when that cortisol is released in an appropriate time, the ultraviolet light is always going to balance that out. So it's modulated in the correct way. We want our cortisol to be higher in the morning. We need it to be low at night. When that cortisol goes up at night, it's disrupting everything. Especially blood sugar is one of the most important things that happen, that our blood sugar automatically goes up. And I'll tell people, if you're starving after, like, before you go to sleep and you need to eat something, you know that your blue light toxic because your cortisol's out of whack and your body's just so hungry, and your insulin's going to get, you can have insulin resistance and leptin resistance. You can put on weight, metabolic issues. But again, that diabetes risk is huge. And of course, from an eye standpoint, it's very, there's a lot of issues with diabetes in the eyes and everything. So we definitely want to lower that cortisol. Taking melatonin, a lot of people, I know you didn't ask about melatonin just now, but I did want to mention taking melatonin is not the best idea because we're going to disrupt our own body. So we want to make sure that our cortisol is low at night, so melatonin is higher and we don't want to take it. And again, from a blood sugar standpoint, blocking that is the best thing. I actually started wearing red light glasses about an hour before bed. I kind of
Mm.
find that it's magic. I mean, I love the orange glasses. I've been wearing them for years. My family wears them. But then I was introduced to red. Viva Rays has these red glasses. And I will tell you that when I put those on, I am literally, it's like a magic sleeping pill for me. I put them on and I'm within a half hour. And again, I always slept well with the orange glasses, but it's just even better. It's amazing. So for people who say, you know what, the orange glasses aren't really working as well as they should, red about a half hour or hour before lowers the intensity of light and blocks out even the green signals, because sometimes melanopsin can, in some people, can be triggered by green, some of the green wavelengths. It blocks all of that. So that's an even better way if people want kind of a faster faster sleep to come to happen, would be more of the red glasses as well.
That's wonderful. Such good advice. We again back to what we said originally about people think diet and exercise, and you see them working really, really hard in the gym, especially when
Mm-hmm.
January hits and they want to make
Yeah.
all these changes and all these, resolutions, but they're setting themselves up for failure by not understanding this information. I really hope this gets out to everybody and we can just keep conveying, for some glasses that I've seen some as much as $200 for a pair. Mine really weren't that much, and
Yeah.
they seem to be doing the job thus far. Under $20 each. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'll find. In fact, I shared a Facebook post the other day that I had some friends inquire about and ask me, where can I find them and how much. I said, based on my current research, my best understanding, these are doing the trick. And if I come across more information that tells me I do need to invest more and I can afford it, I'll do it. But to start somewhere, I like to focus on lowering the barrier of entry for people,
Yeah,
not raising it up. And let's start somewhere. Let's understand these things. So, that's
absolutely.
3 pairs of glasses we can be wearing during the day, and eliminating the sunglasses outside. What a difference we can make to
Mhm.
maximize our sleep and give the body, from just a biological perspective, this advantage of proper rest so we can get up early and the hormonal cascade can be where it needs to be versus how jacked up it's getting from all this junk light that we're being
Exactly.
poisoned with.
Yeah. Spectra 479, is that the company that you got? That I find that that's a really nice, cost-effective pair of glasses you can get on Amazon. It's
Okay.
usually, if people are not able to spend more on glasses, I feel like that's a really good starting point. That may be the one that you have. I'm not sure, but it's a good
It doesn't ring a
company.
bell, but that's great to know. We'll make
Yeah.
sure we put that down. And I'm sure you can hear it. I've got a plane going overhead, so I had to turn the volume up to hear you there.
Uh-huh.
Sorry. I guess that's the one downside to taking all this advice and recording this outside to give me this natural light. I'm at the
Hmm.
mercy of what we've got going on around us.
That's fantastic.
But no, that was great. Yeah, where else did I want to go? I'm grateful that, going down this path of more the quantum coaching as opposed to the optometry, which I still want to touch upon some of that in a moment. I think that's vital information for people as well. Some of the common conditions that we see in the eyes that, certainly people coming in for their massage with me, taking their glasses off and talking about some of the ailments they've gone through there. And these types of things might segue into that, or they might still be more into the overall health and wellness. But with more of the Dr. Jack Kruse type of stuff coming to mind, you've already mentioned the neuropsin a little bit. We've got the melanopsin, and then things like the POMC and the MSH. Touching upon those things and how that's impacting our health. What, again, back to the sunlight in impacting all of those, and maybe that can transition us into some of the eye stuff as well.
Sure. So POMC is this really huge protein. It's this, I think it's like 241 amino acids in the brain, right, and on our skin. And based on the kind of light that gets triggered through our eyes and on our skin, it gets cut up into different pieces. Ultraviolet light is the best way to cut it up into pieces that we need. And POMC can become a lot of different things. So POMC can become cortisol. It turns into ACTH, which actually releases cortisol. So when we're exposed to artificial blue light, it triggers POMC to release cortisol. The adrenals are just, again, that's the other cortisol piece of it. It's just releasing stress hormones and that blood sugar piece from that artificial blue light signal. When we're exposed to the correct ultraviolet signals, we're breaking POMC up into things like lipotropin, which is a fat, breaks down fat. We're breaking it up into beta endorphins, which is basically an opioid that we make to make us happy. So being out in the sun and getting that ultraviolet light literally makes us happy. It makes us want to be outside. It's such an amazing thing for our mood. We have POMC breaks up into different MSH, melano-stimulating hormones, and that's where we can make our melanin. Then we have the melanocortin, the leptin-melanocortin pathway that's controls our metabolism. I mean, there's a big interplay between the melanocortin, POMC, and leptin and insulin. We need leptin to tell our body how much energy we have, how much fat we should be releasing. And unless those signals are all correct with POMC, those things aren't happening. So in a perfect world, we have the correct light signals, we're eating at an appropriate time, and leptin can tell the brain that we have enough energy, we're not going to be hungry, we're going to keep our weight managed. Insulin is also correct as far as blood sugar management, and our energy and our thyroid hormone is all connected. POMC connects up to a lot of those different pathways with our thyroid, our pancreas, our adrenals. All of those things happen based on ultraviolet light exposure and the way it breaks down into different pathways on our skin as well. So
wow. That's awesome. That explanation really gets me to understand better why Jack is so critical about the different studies that we've had and how randomized controlled trials really don't tell us what we think they do. They don't tell us the whole story because we haven't factored in light. And, if we do some of those studies over and get, the participants, you're getting the right spectrum of light every single time, and we see how the body responds there versus the people who, like most people now, are under this artificial light and their body's not responding right. So that really does take away the argument of simply calories in, calories out, which many of us have known for quite a while, just intuitively, that something seems off there. You see some programs come out that talk just about, if it fits your macros type of thing. So if you have X amount of grams of carbohydrates, regardless of where it's coming from, that's what your body needs. And it just seems so silly. From day one, when I heard that, I said, you're telling me this person can have Oreos instead of broccoli and it's their macros, so it'll work. It's like, that clearly doesn't make sense. But it also goes back to the concept that food, diet and exercise alone aren't as important, and light matters so much more. So that was a wonderful explanation. Thank you.
And the timing also, like if we eat a meal, at 8 o'clock at night versus 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it changes everything. It changes how we process that food and those calories. So sometimes when we eat is almost more important than what we're eating. I mean, obviously we need to eat healthy and whole foods and all of that, but yeah, the timing is everything. I mean, our digestive system is on a timer. Our digestive hormones are on a timer. Our gut microbiome is triggered by ultraviolet light and different signals. So everything is on that timer, and we're able to handle more calories and more nutrients at the appropriate times as well. So, people who do this intermittent fasting and they say, oh, I skip breakfast and I eat from, 2 o'clock and my last meal is at 9 p.m. That's not good. I mean, that's your body. How are you processing a meal at 9 p.m.? I feel like there's so much heartburn and people not sleeping because we feel full. I mean, I was away this weekend and we ate a lot. I ate more than I normally do. And, you feel a little more full and it's harder to sleep, although I was outside all day and it was fantastic, which I absolutely loved. But it is harder to eat later at night. So we do want to be careful with timing as well. I mean, it all has to do with the rhythm of our body is
Yeah.
precisely timed.
Absolutely. Great, great point. That's good because that there was a point I wanted to bring up that I would have forgotten had you not said that. One aspect, as you just alluded to, is if we're eating too late and then we're going to bed, instead of giving the body the opportunity to repair, well, now we have to digest. So
Right.
we're wasting all our energy digesting instead of being able to actually repair and get the real
Hmm.
benefit. But the timing thing, that makes me think back. I've been in the industry for over 20 years and I went to college for this, of different certifications, but at a point earlier in my career, the level of ignorance I had, I recall having a conversation with somebody about eating and time. And I said, well, it's not as if your body has some internal clock. And well, boy, doesn't it? The suprachiasmatic nucleus. Yes, indeed. It actually has exactly that. So maybe we can scratch the surface on that a little bit, and then we'll leave a few minutes to be able to touch upon some of the eye conditions things again to make sure we get that. But the
Sure.
SCN and the impact that it has, I mean, there literally
Absolutely.
is this internal clock.
Yeah, there is. There is. And again, light is a signal, but food is another signal. So food is another signal that tells the body that we are safe and that we have enough nutrients. So in a perfect world, we're getting that sun signal and then we're eating right away, within that first hour of sunrise, because we want to sync our digestion and our safety signals and our satiety to light. And
Mm,
those two combine with temperature as well, with our seasonal signals. Those three things together really are what we're designed for. So food is another circadian signal that we need to make sure is within that time frame.
brilliant. That's awesome. You mentioned the intermittent fasting. That's such a popular thing, and I've done that for years myself. And finding the actual time that works best for you. I guess there is an element of it that is individual, but that tying it into the light is an aspect that does not get discussed nearly enough. So
Mhm.
I think that's vital. I think people are going to be able to walk away from this conversation and really take some things and implement it instantly, to maximize their light exposure and adjust their schedule. If they are utilizing the intermittent fasting and they've found it to be beneficial, that's great. But
Mhm.
if we can now shift it into some optimal times, it can be even better and even more
Yeah.
impactful.
That early window would be so much better. Give the body all that time, like you said, to not spend time digesting at night and be, in a fasted state so we can heal overnight and then eat in the morning and have, a nice window of fuel with the sunshine when the sun is nice and bright. So we want our meals to be heavier when the sun is out and lighter as the day goes on because we're not able to digest as much even at night. So dinner should be perhaps a lighter meal as opposed to morning, when there, or even in lunch where we have more signals that we have more energy to digest.
Absolutely. No, that's awesome. I'm getting a ton from this, even more than I was hoping for. So this will be wonderful. I'll be able to adjust my schedule a little bit and see even more from it. Um, so I know we're closing in on the end of the time that you had available, but if we can go over just a couple of the common eye conditions and how light impacts that, because I know, much like what we just discussed from other health aspects, people are led to believe that I need my sunglasses on outside because I have this eye condition and I need
Right.
to protect myself, but it's actually protecting them from the sun that is harming them the most, right? Things like the dry eye, even glaucoma and things like that. So what would you say are the five, maybe we'll throw a number at it, five most common eye conditions that you're dealing with people and how the sun impacts that?
Sure. I would say dry eyes,
Mhm.
is one condition. Nearsightedness is another. Cataracts, macular degeneration, and either diabetic retinopathy, like vascular issues on the retina, or glaucoma. All I would say that would be the window of things um, that I'm seeing. Obviously much more over the years. And we have been conditioned to think it's ultraviolet light. People who have macular degeneration are told to wear their sunglasses because it's ultraviolet light that's damaging their eyes.
Mhm.
But you find these days that people who are getting macular degeneration are not outside. They're not going outside. They're wearing their sunglasses all the time. How is it ultraviolet light when they're sitting in front of a screen all day? And again, and there are studies showing that blue light is becoming a big cause. So it's,
Mhm.
I would say, disrupted light signals, a lack of the infrared and the ultraviolet spectrums in addition to all of that artificial blue, is what's driving so many of these conditions. Cataracts, again, used to be UV light, but most of us are not living outdoors. So the body needs to protect itself from those signals of artificial blue that have nothing balancing. And it's very oxidizing, it's damaging, it's dehydrating, and it's hurting our bodies. So the body will protect itself. We're always going to do, the body's not trying to hurt us. We're trying to do everything we can to protect ourselves. So
Mm.
cataracts will start to form. The collagen proteins will start to get cloudy to try to block some of those blue signals. So that's something that is happening at an earlier age, especially with people who are inside all day. Macular degeneration, of course, blue light is a huge issue. Glaucoma is interesting because glaucoma research is showing that melatonin is really protective of the nerve tissue. Nitric oxide is also very protective and actually lowers eye pressure and blood pressure. And
Mm.
where do we get those signals? We get it from ultraviolet light, and most of us are hiding. And again, that early signal of ultraviolet is by far one of the most important things we can get. Anytime, well, ultraviolet light in general, anytime ultraviolet light hits our skin, it's releasing nitric oxide, and our blood vessels are dilating so that we can collect more light. When the blood vessels dilate from nitric oxide release, our blood pressure goes down, our eye pressure goes down, we're getting more nutrients. So glaucoma, to me, when people have glaucoma, my first thing I say is, how are you sleeping? And the answers I get these days are, I really don't. I'm a night shift worker, or I don't sleep very well, or I watch TV all night, or I have the TV on in my bedroom. Do you get outside? No, I'm inside all day. So, so we have to get the light signals and the melatonin, all of that. Dry eyes is also a product of, again, blue light toxicity and screen time and just not getting the sun. All of it really has to do with the wrong signals, because dry eyes can also be, in addition to the direct link of blue light being very dehydrating, the circadian link to poor health, with hormone issues, with diabetes, cardiovascular disease, all of the different conditions that happen from poor circadian rhythm are linked to dry eyes. Medications, their side effects are dry eyes. So many things, just from a direct standpoint of light, and then an indirect standpoint of our poor health from poor circadian rhythm, are driving most of these issues. And again, not to say that ultraviolet light cannot be damaging. And again, I'm not going to just say, take off your sunglasses and never wear them again and stare at the sun. I'm never saying stare at the sun, and I'm not saying that we don't need to be careful, because obviously, if we're on a boat and the light is reflecting off of the ocean, or skiing, the reflected light changes the light signals, and that's damaging. That can cause trouble, of course. So we want to be careful in those conditions. There are conditions where maybe we really shouldn't be getting, maybe a few conditions where we want to be a little more careful. And building up slowly is really important. So a little bit of ultraviolet light is a big help, because it's such a nice, strong signal. It does a lot for us. And by getting those early signals without our sunglasses, I think that's really important. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Right. And light sensitivity is actually worse when people are wearing them all the time. So that most people, when I say, why don't you try taking them off in the morning, to just start slowly, and they say, but I can't, my eyes are so sensitive. And I say, the reason why they're so sensitive is because you have not exposed yourself to that full spectrum, and you are cooked by blue. Your body has literally no idea what time it is. Your body thinks it's 12 o'clock from the second you wake up until the second you go to sleep. That's too strong. It's not normal. So by starting slowly, the light sensitivity does go away. And myself included, I used to wear them all the time. So, there is a way to just build that up. Mhm. Right. Mhm. Um, sure. So the only thing we didn't touch upon was grounding, which I know I'm sure you talk about all the time, is just gathering, being connected to the earth in addition to being outside. Those electrons that we're getting from earth is also powering up our bodies, which again, I know and we've talked about. I just didn't mention that. Yeah, Quantum Eye Doc. I'm Quantum Eye Doc on Instagram and YouTube so far. I do take clients via Zoom, so there's links on those two platforms to just reach me as far as. And again, it's not eye exams online; it's just more of quantum coaching, and so I'm not not doing optometry uh, virtually. So I just want to make that clear. So that's what I'm doing so far. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. I appreciate it. Okay, take care.